Hey, hello. I want to talk about why you need a side hustle. Why everybody needs a side hustle. Everybody. Most people. Everybody at some point. And then maybe eventually not so much, but then again later. See, even though you might not think Justin Timberlake and Ashton Kutcher and Dan Aykroyd, anybody, even though you might think, well, they made plenty of money acting, that's all I ever need. They have side hustles. They are diversified. First of all, they produce, and second of all, they also invest. Dan Aykroyd has a vodka, Ashton Kutcher, I'm not sure what his endeavors are, but he's pretty diversified. I think there's restaurants, and I think JT, like there's other business ventures that once they have a certain amount of capital, they go out and secure their cash a little bit. And that's because everybody knows, like, careers can just peter out. And movies don't always, they're not always smash hits. It's always going to be a bit of a high risk to a certain extent to be solely an entertainer. So you shouldn't. You should never be solely an entertainer. That's your passion. In a sense, that's your side hustle until it becomes your main thing, but then know that it can go back to being your side hustle. Or it becomes your main thing and you make a lot of money, and then great, but then you're still going to want to grow and secure your earnings because your lifestyle is presumably also going to sort of go up a little bit and your expenses are going to be higher. So just because you're making $10 million on a movie doesn't mean that your rent's not now suddenly, or mortgage payment isn't $100,000 a month. So if you want to live in a mansion. So think of it that way. I mean, think of when you were making, $1,000 a month, how you lived, and then you made $3,000 and you went up a little bit. Now could you go back to making 1,000? No. So you're constantly growing. So you need a side hustle. You need something that's going to give you consistency. It's very important. Everybody has it. There's very few producers that have deals with studios that pay them overhead, for instance. So very few. Most producers, independent producers, need to, of course, if you work for a studio, work for Warner Brothers, you get paid your salary, but then you work for Warner Brothers. So if you're an independent producer, you need to figure out what you're doing in between projects. You might raise enough money to live off of them, and that's cool, but it can get very scary. And so diversifying, and as an actor, of course, as well. So diversifying into independent service production, which is what I advocate with Dracis, producing for other people, producing as a service, creating a proof of concept that you can repeat, market, and sell predictably. Very creative, very fun stuff. Or, something else that's industry related that you can do, like using your, it's hard for me to come up with things right now. It used to be like if you had gear, you could rent that out and stuff, but that's all still very unpredictable, and it all depends on, too much can change there. So all I'm saying is, whatever your side hustle is, it has to be something that's either relevant to where you're going with your main hustle. So if you're a producer or an actor, like producing as a service is the next best thing. It's still creative. You can have more control. If you don't know what producing as a service is, there's a video about that. And of course, you can hit us up and talk about Dracis with us anytime if you're interested in actually doing it. But it's important because the inconsistency of this of this not market, industry. When you rely on others to give you jobs, and it's gigs, and they're short jobs. That's why series regulars feel like they've caught a break. But really, it's just a longer job, you know? So you're on a lot of episodes, but then the show could end at the end of the season, you know? So drumming up another one of those is long term. It's very hard. And I have another video called, big gigs versus small gigs or whatever. The bigger the gig, basically, the farther apart and the harder they are to drum up. So having something that's consistent throughout to bridge those periods and to even add additional cash flow while you're working on those other things is to me, one of the most important things for your future and your sanity. So you need a side hustle, but don't call your day job your side hustle. I guess that's the big distinction I wanted to make in this video. Working 40 hours a week, doing something completely unrelated is not a side hustle. That's a job. And then your acting is your hobby. Because if you're spending 8 hours a day at work, an hour commuting, an hour for lunch, then you have, 10 or 11 hours a day that you're kind of preoccupied with your work. And then you squeeze in an hour or two of, acting related stuff, maybe some reading at the end of the day. It's not bad, but boy, if you were spending those 8 or 10 hours doing something more relevant, that's pretty significant in terms of how much more time you would be spending, learning more about the industry that you're truly interested in. So your side hustle should be within the industry. And ideally, it should be somewhere in a position of control. Not somebody's assistant necessarily, unless it's a stepping stone, but assistants usually don't end up being CEOs. So something, producing, or doing something really cool, with a casting director, for instance, or, doing something that's sort of relevant to where you want to go with your life. Like one lady that I work with a lot just got certified for COVID, and now is doing a lot of COVID stuff on sets. Like she's doing all the PPE and the checking of people and all that right now. Now that's a temporary side hustle until COVID's over, right? So I would encourage you to look at something more permanent, but that's just a fun way, to showcase that, you can get creative with your life and do something that works for you. So I hope that helps. You need a side hustle. Don't try to make acting your main source of income, because it's going to corrupt the way you think about it. And then you're going to act for money. And it's going to affect your acting and your roles and the stuff that you take. And you're just going to end up being a whore to shitty films. You don't want that. You want to be an artist putting their signature on good projects. You want to read a script and love it and then say, hey, I think this is a great movie for me. I'm going to do this. Not, I really need the money. I really need the money. I need to take this. It's awful. This is the worst script I ever read, but maybe it'll be a good movie. It won't. Good luck. Oh, share, subscribe, like, hate.